Welcome everyone to this Let's Play of Kerbal Space Program 1.1.3, also known as Turbocharged. Now, it's been a while since the contract system was reorganised by Coherent Contracts, a supplier to KSC. And in all that confusion and development, we now have a new way of viewing all of our contracts, including a new set of contracts designed to clean up space junk. Now, in this case, Jeb's Kerman's Junkyard and Spacecraft Parts Company has two different sets of contracts. It has to clean up space by destroying space junk, and clean up space by recovering said space junk. And obviously recovering space junk improves your reputation somewhat. But we're going to go for cleaning up space junk by destroying it. And this is a contract I've been developing in coordination with Coherent Contracts. And it is to save Kerbin from pollution by destroying Duna 1 debris, which is currently near Kerbin. And this contract has been generated by Sean's Cannery, which is a very eco-friendly company. In fact, it's so concerned to ensure space is tidy, they did contract Jeb's Junkyard to clean it up. We're going to get an advance of 23,000 Kerbucks. We'll get another 17,000 on completion, plus a little bit of science and reputation. And it is for just this sort of contract we have been designing our plane on a stick. So let's go get it ready and get us some junk. Okay, well, we're in the VAB, so I think it's about time we rolled out our plane on a stick Mark 1. This is the vehicle we've been designing over the last couple of episodes. So we have the very large red stick, and then here at the top we have our plane. It's got two crew capsules. One of them has an inventory containing explosives and tools, and the other one has an inventory containing just these CCR2 connector ports. So what I'm going to do is make sure, because I don't know which of these two cabins we're going to have which of our crew in, I think I'm just going to halve the various parts so that both inventories contain explosives and both inventories contain these connector ports. These connector ports would be much more useful if we were going to be refueling one of the pieces of debris in order to recover it, for which we'd then need tools. But the explosives is what we need for destroying our debris, so we will do that. Next, we're obviously going to need a crew. Now, for all of these various tasks, we're going to need a pilot and engineer. Now, we're going to have Jeb on ground station helping out with the activities from the tracking station. But I think we're going to take Orb T. Kerman and have Orb T. Kerman be our engineer to do the destroying. It obviously takes an expert Welsh engineer in order to blow things up. And we'll take Danput Kerman as our pilot in the other cockpit. So I think that is just about ready. So we've already tested this craft on a couple of other unsuccessful occasions. So I think it's about time we launched and destroyed our debris in order to meet our contract. Well, Danput and Orb T. Kerman have made it out onto the launch pad. So let's just pop into map mode and just see where our debris is relative to our capsule. There we go. Let's get our capsule on. So this is us here ready to launch, and this is our debris, nicely highlighted there with a little blue box. Now, we could go for our standard launch, circularize, and then go for rendezvous. But where would the fun in that be? Danput is a tried and trusted pilot. Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to go for a direct rendezvous. So let's just mark this debris as our target. And what we're going to do is we are going to launch into orbit just as the debris is around about here where this particular piece of debris is. This is Mun Orb 1 debris. And then we're going to launch up and try and meet it at Apoapsis. Now, Danput and I are probably not going to manage that, but we're going to give it a go. So first things first, let's use the magic of Time Warp just to bring our debris round so it's sort of over the edge of this sort of continent here, sort of just as it comes down to this rather nice picturesque beach that must be having rather nice sunset, I think. So here we go. It's just coming round now. Almost there. So let's slow right down. There we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our KOS script to get us up to our cruising altitude, and then we'll take over the rest of the rendezvous from there. So let's run our standard launch script. Now we've seen a launch of the plane on the stick during the test flight in the previous episode, so we know this goes relatively smoothly. So Orb T. Kerman and Danput don't really have that much to worry about. Yeah. Okay, well, as we can see up here in the top left, as we've seen before, we're going to be aiming for a target thrust-to-weight ratio of 2, and the KOS script will manage our throttle and also our pitch above the horizon. So when this pitch gets to 30 degrees, it will then cruise up to the default target altitude of 100 kilometers. But that's at the point at which we're going to take over. So most of this activity is going to take place here in map view. So let's just rotate to the view that Jeb has from mission control. So you can see us launching here. We're currently at 18 kilometers, and this is the target debris that we are after. So we're hoping to meet it either on the way up or on the way down, somewhere along its arc here. Obviously, ideally, we would meet it at Apoapsis, but I don't think Danput and I are going to be able to manage that. But let's see how close. Let's see how close we can get. So we're still rising, so 45 kilometers. We can see up here we're at 40 degrees to the horizon, so when this gets to 30 is when the throttle will kick in and just lock to 100%, and that's when we're going to kill it. So we will kill that script, and we will now do the rest of the rendezvous manually. So here we come, coming up to an apoapsis of about 100. I think we're going to be here slightly early. There we go. So there's our initial rendezvous. And I think we're going to try and meet it, here we go, on the way down. There we go. So I've just killed the engine. So this is going to be an intersect of 4.1 kilometers. That's pretty good for a direct launch. We missed it on the way up. I think we launched just a smidgen too early, so perhaps we need to wait until it's sort of more into this ocean here. But that's not so bad. We don't need our plane on a stick KOS module anymore. So let's go back into normal mode. So let's make sure we are ready to meet, I was about to say meet our maker, but hopefully this will be a slightly more successful mission than that. But it won't be very successful if we don't extend our panels. I realise we are on the dark side of we're on the dark side at the moment, so we won't be getting very much light. Now at the moment, as we can see, we are well ahead of our debris. Our debris is still, how far about? Still 190 kilometers behind it. So what I'm going to do is I am going to warp up to our AP using this nice warp 2 handle. And that should bring the debris somewhat closer and somewhat below and behind us. So I don't think... there we go. We can see it right there. So it's 91 kilometres behind us. And it should be somewhat below us. 84 kilometres, yes. So it's about 40 kilometres below us. So we've got a little bit fuel left in this bottom stage here. What's that? 628 units. And then we've got a full tank, well, several full tanks of fuel up here in our aircraft. Remember, we've got our emergency liquid fuel here in the top as well. So what I like to do is try and keep the velocity here about 10% of the velocity here. So this should be about, well, 470. So what I'm going to do is use what's left of the fuel. Let's get the RCS on because it's going to be quite a difficult vehicle to turn. And just bring down our velocity relative to this to make it a little bit easier when we have our smaller engine. So let's just burn off a little bit of this speed using the larger engine. Again, we're just going to herd our yellow marker back towards our target. So we want to get it down to about 180. Blew up a part of the launch vehicle there. Never mind, probably the stack decoupler, I think. So we want to get this down to about 130, just so we're under control. So there we go. So we get it down to 110. There we go. So it's getting under control. There we go. So we're 81. So we're a little bit under, but that's fine. That's fine. At least we are under control. So let's just rotate so we can see a little bit more of our craft. Let's get the magic of ambient lighting mod up just so we can see a little bit more from our exterior camera view. We're now at 9 kilometers, 8.9. So that again is a nice speed relative to distance because we're at 81 meters per second. So we're roughly matching the anticipated speed here. So let's just dribble out a little bit more of our thrust and just keep our two thrust and distance relatively together. There we go. So we've got quite a powerful engine here in the Reliance, so we should be able to make some pretty good pretty good relative speed changes if we need to. We are now at 5.5 kilometers, so we want to slow down just a little bit more. Again, I'm still herding the marker, making sure we are still going backwards towards the target. 4 kilometers, 4.8 kilometers, speed of 42 meters per second. Still going pretty much straight backwards towards the target. So there we go, 42 and 4.2, 4.1. So let's just dribble out a little bit more. So 3.7 kilometers. There's our debris falling away. Hopefully stage recovery will recover that for us. So 3.2 kilometers. Let's just again bleed off a little more of that speed, do a little bit more herding. There we go. So 28 and 2.8. Pretty much again now going straight backwards towards our target. So I'm just going to be patient. Bleed off a little bit more of that speed. So we want to get down to about 23. 22, there we go. 21. 1.9 kilometers. Just drifting slightly away, so let's bring ourselves back. 1.7 kilometers. Doing pretty well, Dampet. I knew we could rely on you. Orb T. Kerman is going to have the hard task in a minute. So we're starting to get pretty close now. So it's time to make sure we keep our target velocity very much under control. So we are almost within 1 kilometre. Here we go, 1 kilometre. So let's start slowing down, because now we're pretty much getting to within meters of our target, and it's almost jetpack distance. And of course, we're going to be blowing this. We're going to be blowing this up. So it's probably a good idea we are a few hundred meters away. So 8.3 meters per second approach, and just under 800 meters to the target. Going towards at 5 meters per second, still closing in pretty well. .640 meters. Still going towards the target at 4.4 meters per second. So we'll bring it into stationary about 100 meters away. That should give Orb T. Kerman a good, a short yet safe distance between which he can light the blue touch paper. So I think it's getting a little bit ahead of us now, because you can see the speed to target is dropping, which probably means it's just beginning to overtake us. So let's just bring that back. So 400 meters. Only going in now at 3.4 meters per second. And you can just about start to make out the outline of the orange tank that comprises much of this debris. So 260 meters, 250. I think it's just a little bit overtaken us now. Coming up to 200 meters. So I'm going to bring it to a halt about 100 meters away. 170. Looks like we're about to get a sunrise as well. 150 meters. So I think it's about time we just burnt off. There we go, lovely sunrise. I think we're going to send that back as a screenshot for Jeb to see what he's missing. Dampet doing an excellent job. Except he's now a little bit close. So let's just make sure that we aren't drifting towards something that's about to explode. There we go, 2 meters, 0.2 meters per second towards the target. And I'm just going to see if I can. There we go. Oops, a little bit overdone there. So we're now going a little bit away from the target, but that's probably a pretty good idea. So next, I think it's about time that Orb T. Kerman does his duty. So let's get him out of the capsule. Make sure he has an inventory, including some explosives. He does. So let's let go, get his RCS on, and let's get this job done. Okay, so let's turn ourselves around and get ourselves towards the target, not away from it. So there we go, there's our prograde marker. Let's get ourselves up towards it. We're going towards it at almost 2 meters per second. Just 56 meters away now. So I think what I want to do is I actually want to get myself above it, and I think we're actually going to stand on top of it. We're going to surf. We're going to do some debris surfing. So I think I want to slow ourselves down. There we go, going towards it now at 0.6. So this was a debris we left. It's got a decoupler, orange tank, fins and engine here at the back. So let's get ourselves positioned over our... That's a pretty good screenshot as well. Close that up. There we go. Jeb can see how this is progressing. So let's get ourselves on top of our orange tank. There we go. So Jeb is going to be quite proud here of Orb T. Kerman doing his bit for Sean's cannery. Now, important part of the mission. So let's get the inventory open. And what we're going to do is we are going to place this explosive with an H. Let's have a look. There we go. And now it's about time we activate. So let's get ready to do that. And then get the heck out of here. So we've activated. Got 10 seconds to get out of the area of explosion. Whoa! Oh, that was close. Well done there, Orb T. Kerman. That is one piece of debris well destroyed. Right. We've got to get back down to our plane on a stick. So let's set that as a target, and then we can use... there we go. Then we can use our target markers down here on our nav ball to get ourselves back. So that was the main part of our contract. So let's have a look. Destroy Duna 1 debris. That has been done successfully. So let's have a look at our contract details. We did indeed clean up space. So that is one less piece of space debris. Good work. We got our 17,000 Kerbucks, our one piece of science. Which hopefully Mabe has been looking at back down in the Science Centre, and we did get a little bit of reputation, so that is all good. So we've got 100 metres now to get ourselves back into our plane on a stick, and I've got to remember which side of the plane on a stick we came into. I think it's this top side. So let's move ourselves over to the right a bit and then slow ourselves down. There we go. So 0.4. So there's the ladder on the hatch, 9 meters away. So we're coming in pretty directly. Two meters away. And then it's going to be a B for board. There we go. We are all aboard. Well done there, Orb T. Kerman. That was a mission well completed. Let's get ourselves orientated around so we can at least see ourselves in the sunlight. Let's take another screenshot here of our successful mission craft. All that really remains is for us to get this craft back down onto the runway. And that is not such an easy task, believe me. Now, the observant of you will notice I've done a few laps of the planet. You can see here from the mission clock. We've done quite a few laps, in fact. And the idea was to bring the KSC into daylight. We can just about see it here. It's just come beyond dawn. This is us here on the far side. Now, it has been pointed out to me that one of the... where we are, there we go. One of the problems with my approach to landing has been of coming in a bit too steep, and that has caused a few heating effects. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in much shallower than before. I think we probably need trajectories on now. So let's pull our, there we go, pull our orbit in and try and come in a lot shallower than we have been. So let's even pull this back a bit. There we go. So we're coming in roughly onto KSC. That's our predicted landing spot. Oh, that's the wrong way. Let's pull. There we go. So that should bring us in to land somewhere at the KSC. And it's a little bit shallower than we have been used to. So let's get ourselves prepared for that maneuver. Put ourselves on the maneuver node, turn ourselves around to the horizon. Let's have a quick look at our craft. There we go. Have a quick look at our craft before Danput brings us back down. It's a 6-second burn at full throttle in about a minute's time. Again, it's probably not that important that we do this accurately, only that our predicted landing site is as close to the one that we have predicted here from trajectories. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave us on the node, and I'm just going to bleed off our delta V that we have listed here for the maneuver, and just watch as our blue line comes in, and it should follow perhaps this dotted line here. So we want to be hitting the ground according to our blue trajectory around about just on this shoreline here. So let's keep ourselves on the node. You can just see our periapsis coming in here. Still coming down. Just over halfway through the burn. Now our solar panels are still out. They may be affecting trajectory's calculation of drag, and it thinks we have a slightly more drag than we actually will when we get through to our final approach. However, as I get ready to kill the thrust, that will be the least of our worries, I think. I don't think my piloting skills are likely to have that much of an effect compared to the amount of drag we may or may not get from extended solar panels. So that is our final predicted location of landing just short of the runway, which is excellent because we do have fuel for our engine. So let's go out of map mode now and get ourselves ready for our eventual arrival. So let's get our panels down now. So let's rotate, let's retract both of those. We'll be going in back end first for the moment, so that's that way. So I think we need to flip ourselves around so we can go belly first. There we go. So we're now going belly first relative to orbit. Now I'm going to kill this engine because we won't need that again and get that out of the way. And I'm going to have these ready activated. There we go, ready activated. Now as far as fuel goes, we've got plenty of fuel. We've got a good bit of fuel there in those tanks. This is still completely full. And we know what happened... we know what happened last time when this was the case. We ended up with far too much weight at the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer forward 55 units of oxidizer out of this central tank, I think. And just move a little bit of weight forward. Hopefully that will mean we have a much easier ride back onto the runway. So there we go, we are now full. So let's get rid of those windows. We still have a little bit of oxidizer left in each of these two tanks, so I guess we could have a go at moving a little bit of that forward. So let's do out, what about 40 odd units? There we go, so that leaves 50 in that tank, and let's see if we can do the same and leave about 50 in this tank. There we go. So still balanced left and right. We've moved as much fuel forward as we can. We still have liquid fuel in these tanks for running the engines, and we have this air intake now open, ready to ready to accept air. What else? Ready to accept air for our engines. So all we can really do now is wait until we start hitting the atmosphere. We're at 80 kilometers now, so I'm just going to use a little bit of time warp to bring us forward to 70 odd kilometers. There we go. So we've just hit the surface, or the top edge. Oh, look at that. Smart. Getting some good screenshots here to send back to KSC, something for them to put on the wall, which is excellent. Dan put ready to do the rest of this return. So let's just quickly nip out into map mode. We're now predicted to be a little bit out into the ocean, so I think we probably are going to overshoot now. So I think those solar panels really did have a significant impact on our impact. So Dan put, I think we're going to have a little bit of a trip back to the runway, coming over the edge of the continent. This must have been the continent that our debris was over when we launched, I guess. There we go. So we're coming up to the start of the sort of thicker part of the atmosphere. So we should start to see a beginnings of heating effect. So let's go to surface speed. Orb T and Dan put, I think, are happy to be getting home. Of course, they haven't landed yet. We do have parachutes, and we have used those on our test flight. We may well have to use those when we arrive back as well. So we have options, and dumping into the ocean is an option. Now I can see some heat beginning to build up in these nose cones. So that's a bit of a worry. There we go. So we can see. So let's get ourselves as face on as we can to the airflow. Just give us as much drag as we can to bring our landing spot as near the front of the runway as possible, save us a trip home. So we are going in a lot shallower, so hopefully that should reduce the heating problems. We can see we've still got problems heating this lower fin. It's still only amber, but let's see. We are starting to lose some surface speed now. No! No! We lost it. So that's been lost anyway. We're also now getting a little bit of heat on these nose cones, but that seems to have gone away. Those nose cones are not necessarily designed for this sort of activity. The fuel tanks and the capsules, the cabins that we have, probably are, but I don't think the nose cones necessarily are. So we're losing quite a bit of speed now, down to 1.9 kilometers per second. We can see the mountains here behind the KSC. Let's get another shot for Jeb. Mabe can also analyse this for problems with heating. Make sure our vehicles are better constructed next time around. So down to 1.5 kilometers a second. 1.4. No particular problems with heating at this point. Getting down to the 1 kilometer a second mark, and that is when heating effects will go. So that's pretty much, at least we're not going to explode. That is always good. So what we're going to do now is just bring ourselves forward and just see KSC over here. So I think we are going a little bit. Oh look, there's that debris that we saw on the map earlier. So I'm just going to bring ourselves into a slightly more horizontal attitude and get our engines on. See, they fired up there. Now looks like we're going to be falling a long way short of the runway. So far from going in the drink, which we thought we would, we are actually going to have quite a bit of a journey. So let's leave Orb T, Kerman and Danput to have a rather picturesque ride back to the KSC, and we'll rejoin them later. Well, after a bit of a journey, we have rejoined Orb T, Kerman and pilot Danput Kerman on their final approach to KSC. Again, we came in quite a bit south of where I was expecting to come in. It's been a very squirrely ride without our fin. Without our basic fin, we have had some rather poor handling, and we have quite a lot of fuel on board, and that has shifted the centre of mass quite badly, not in our favour. So we're going to have to slow right down. We're already at 200 meters per second. So we're going to have to slow right down, get our gear down. We're still a little bit north of the runway now. Haven't done particularly good job on our approach, but I fear it's going to be another parachute landing. We're going to have a go. Danput is going to have another go, but it may be the plane on a stick. It wasn't the stick that was the problem. It was the instability of the plane. Now, we don't want to come down too hard. We are still going pretty fast. We're still pretty long way away from the runway. It looks like we're coming down on the side again. So we're going to abandon our runway landing. We're just going to get ourselves level with the ground, not coming down too hard, and we're going to go for a chute landing. So chute landing it is. Rather bumpy, but we made it. Oh dear. Brakes on. Well, as long as nobody actually saw what happened, I'm sure we'll be just fine. So I think we're going to turn ourselves around and head back to to the hangar, which is somewhat behind us. So no, that wasn't a particularly successful landing. We know exactly what I feel about landings on runways with planes. But thank you very much, Danput. Thank you very much, Orb T. Kerman. You did an excellent job completing that custom contract. So with that said, I'd like to thank you for watching Orb T. Kerman and Danput completing that contract. Like and subscribe if you would like to like and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.